Hey, this is Jason McLean, author and illustrator of Metroplex Monsters, and you're listening to Bigfoot Club Podcast.
Hey everybody, Robert Jesse Dominguez, Bigfoot Club, Season 4, Episode 5. It's just me and Steven today. Steven, say hello.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
It's going good. Yeah, it's just been I feel like it's been a month.
Since the last show?
Yeah, since the last show. No, but it feels like a month, but it's been 2 weeks, right?
Yeah,
okay,
like 2 weeks or something like that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure on that. Yeah, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Pretty darn good. I've been walking better a little bit. I got some. Last time we were together, I bought some new shoes. I've been walking better, and I got the Fitbit you got me, and I'm doing like 10,000 steps a day, and it's really, really nice. So I'm really, really happy.
Yeah, I need a. Blair's getting on to me about that. I was like, I bought you that, and you didn't even use it. And, I said, well, it's being used now, But yeah, I need to get like some sort of iWatch or something like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good exercise, and I've been exercising pretty good, so I'm pretty happy. I will say that Juan's not in today. I think he's running a little bit late, but if he shows up, he shows up, and if he doesn't, then he doesn't. Then we're gonna move on. I'm really excited today. We have an interesting guest today. I'm really, really excited. Are you excited?
I am. Especially whatever he was giving us a little appetizer, what he did on the earlier life. Then I'm all for it. I love music, so.
Okay. Our guest today is Carter Buschardt. He's been an investigator for the BFRO for the last 12 years, originally from Texas and currently lives in Missouri. He has nearly 100 reports published by the BFRO website, and he's interviewed over 350 witnesses and counting. He's an experienced outdoorsman, trained as an investigator for MUFON. Wow. Carter, hey.
Yes.
Nice to have you on. I really, really appreciate you coming on. I think you're actually the very first BFRO person we've actually had on the show.
Well, my condolences.
I know we talked off before, like a couple of weeks ago we talked, and I was telling you that I actually tried to be on, I applied to be on the BFRO in like 1999, and I was not successful. And like we were talking on the phone, so it was just something that I don't have any bad will toward the BFRO. I just I think it was kind of good that I didn't join that group. So, but I hear good things about that group.
It's okay. It's a double-edged sword for me because it is the world's largest database of sightings, but the reports are they're not always accurate. They sanitize some of the reports and take key data out of reports, and I've been the victim of that myself, and it's quite frustrating. So I've quit doing reports for them for the last year. I just don't do them anymore because I don't want to be a part of falsification of data, and it's very frustrating, especially for the witnesses who are telling me and other investigators what happened to them when they saw these creatures, and they're sanitizing some of the reports. If it gets anywhere close to paranormal, quantum physics, esoteric skill sets, things of that nature, they take it out. And that ain't right. That's just not right. So, and any day now, when they end up hearing some of this, they may just, take me out of the database, and that's fine, because I just can't. I can't do it. I can't look myself in the mirror and be a part of that. So, but the selfish part of me wants to be there, so I do have access to the reports coming in, because it just takes one report to change everything. But if you're going to falsify the data, I just can't be a part of that. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. But I've met a lot of great people. I've had like I said, about 100 reports published. I think 98 or 99. I've had about another 7 or 8 that were published and then unpublished for a variety of reasons. But there's a lot of bizarre stuff going on out there, and what prompted me to write my 2 books is that when people are talking to me, and they'll, most of the reports, 50% of them are pretty much road crossings. I was driving down a highway as Sasquatch ran across a highway. I mean, that is your very most typical report. But a lot of these people have been sitting on things for decades because they're too traumatized. And then they start telling me things that are absolutely mind-blowing, materialization, mind speak, infrasound, walking through walls, walking through trees, disappearing while you're staring straight at them. I mean, just stuff like that. And, BFRO wants nothing to do with that stuff. So I started taking these reports, and then I did about 35 or 40 podcasts last year. And people were coming through the woodwork wanting to tell me what was going on with them because nobody else would talk to them, or where they were, if they did talk to somebody, they were kind of ridiculed and kind of scoffed at. I said, well, you don't really believe that, do you? And so I said, well, I'll talk to you and I will believe you, or I'll at least listen to you, 5% are exaggerating or hoaxing or attempting to hoax, but for the most part, these people, and they don't know each other, they don't want anything, they are sharing things with me they haven't told anybody for fear of ridicule. And it's gone off the charts. It's crazy. It's just crazy, but there's something going on.
Right.
Nobody. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to say that was interesting because, I've always been through the school of whenever a sighting report comes in, and if we thought it was hoaxing or it was falsifying, I would still go out and do it. No matter what, I would go out there because you're not going to learn if what's real and what's not if you just don't go out there and just talk to the people and just see what they have to offer. So I've always went to the school of just go out, do just do the report, take it, and then collect the evidence if there's any, and then go on from there. But
and that's what you should do. So and my whole thing is if you don't believe in the paranormal quantum physics aspect, at least consider it. Because if you're just a dumb ape in the woods guy or woman, that only explains just so much. Then you're at a dead end. Mm-hmm. Now, the paranormal, of course, opens many, many, many doors. But, and this is one of my go-to phrases, but when you're born, the moment you exit the birth canal, you are told how the world is. You're educated by the teachers. They're handed a book. They teach you. Religion teaches you everything. You're taught how everything is. So by the time you're 0 to 22 years old, you've been pretty much brainwashed and hypnotized to believe the world is a certain way. Then when you see things that you cannot explain, you blow them off or explain them away as, well, that must have been a guy in a ghillie suit. That must have been a deer or a bear walking on its hind legs, or must have been a bad taco I had for lunch, or something.
Or swamp gas.
You're going to talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
And so that stuff gets swept under the rug. But when you start looking into this and are seriously curious about the way the world is, and I'm talking about everything, evolution, UFOs, Sasquatch, anything paranormal, cryptids, you have to question that if you see something, because you see it, and you're not a crazy person. You see it. That's your reality. Nobody can take that away from you, and you have to stand your ground and believe it and question it and try to find out, well, what is another explanation other than what they told me when I was, a baby? Mm-hmm. And so that's how I've come to where I'm at now is that, the government knows about Sasquatch. They just aren't telling us because, if it was just a dumb ape in the woods, why would you hide it? People are discovering new species of trees, plants, fish, animals, weekly, monthly. It hits the news and you don't even think about it. Many people don't even pay attention. Well, they discovered another a gecko living in the Philippines, and it's in a different family, so it's a new species. Well, that happens all the time. So, but there's something about Sasquatch they don't want us to know because I think it goes much further than a flesh and blood ape.
Right.
I believe they can exist, obviously, in our plane, but if there's other dimensions, if they can change their vibrational frequency, if they can do a lot of things that people are reporting, then there's something going on. And I know they know, and they are just lying to us until they can't lie anymore. Just like the UFOs. They lied to us about the UFOs for 80, 90 years, if you go back to the 40s. And so, well, there's no such thing. It's swamp gas. It's you're looking at the lights of the Earth reflecting off the ducks as they fly overhead and all that crap.
Right.
But the Tic Tac videos came up, and now because we knew about this. We knew it all along. We've been lying. We just couldn't tell you. We didn't want to release it, and so they've been lying about that. And because they just ran out of lies, they ran out of time. People are starting to get smart and hip. It's going to be the same with Sasquatch. I just hope it happens while I'm still alive, because I want to see it and see the egg on their face. There's something going on. There really is absolutely something going on with these beings, and that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. Anyway,
right. Your first book, Sasquatch: The Evidence of a Enigma, that came out in 2021, right? And
yes.
Sasquatch: The Enigma Part 2 came out in February of 2022, which is this year, right? Or just coming out. So was that just one book, and you just split it up into two, or?
No, it's actually 4 books. The Sasquatch: Evidence of an Enigma, Part 1, was I put it out, I think, in 2020. Right when COVID hit.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And then I added about another 50 pages to that book because it was doing well. I added a second edition. I added a couple of reports and some other updates on a lot of things that are in the book. And then during that period, when that book came out, I started getting calls from people hearing me on podcasts, and they say, no one will talk to me. When they do, they just laugh and scoff at me. I want to tell you what happened. And so I started compiling all these reports, and it just blows your mind, some of the things that these people are experiencing. And some of them are just traumatized. They've been traumatized for decades. They've sat on it and hadn't said anything to anybody. Their spouses won't even talk to them. They think they're crazy. Their coworkers, the people you should be being supported, are the ones that are making you feel the worst. And so I did the second book, and it is probably 80% paranormal, quantum physics, quantum related type things that you cannot explain with your meat and potatoes dumb ape in the woods. And that's where the second book came out. And I had signed a book deal with Beyond the Fray Publishing, and my book was about 147 pages. And I was interviewing a guy that lives up in Canada, and he was telling me, he heard me on a podcast and called me. And the stuff he was telling me were just blowing my mind. I had not heard literally some of the things he was telling me. Well, it was very painful for him to relive all this. So he had to take a break. I said, listen, I need to take a break. I'm reliving this stuff. It gave me a horrible time as a kid growing up. And so I'll call you back here in about a week or two. Well, 3 months later, he still hadn't called me, and I had to release the book. Because he was still just trying to come to grips with, reliving all this stuff. So when he finally got back in touch, I'd already released the first edition of the second book. I added 110 pages to the second book, and most of that was just him. And he's been going through this stuff for 50, 60 years. Let's say that he's 66. So he's been going through it for about 45 to 50 years that he can remember. That's like, you got to be kidding me. Now, I don't know if you've heard of the book 50 Years with Bigfoot by Mary Green.
Actually, I've heard of it, but I have not read that.
Yeah, it's out of print. It's very, very hard to find. I've got one. It's autographed, but it's 50. It's the Tennessee Chronicles is another word for it. But this woman and her grandpa, they had Sasquatches they interacted with every day, every week, every month. They had names. They had clans. Some of them lived in their basement, and it's crazy. Now, they had a lot more activity than my guy did because he lived in the bush in Canada. Mm-hmm. So, and there was times where things were going on and he didn't even realize what was going on because he was too busy just living his life, and he wasn't getting the clues at the moment. But when he finally did, his whole world went upside down. He and his dad had a lot of experiences. His mom had a few. She really didn't want to talk about it and really didn't want to admit them. They got divorced early on. But he and his dad had a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to even tell you where to start with some of the stuff that was going on with him.
Yeah, I mean, that's some stuff. Like whenever I was with the TBRC, I was taught that it was like flesh and blood. I know we talked about this prior, like a couple of weeks ago, and it was flesh and blood. And anybody that came to us that talked about, portals or, Bigfoot stepping through a wormhole or something like that, we just kind of discounted it and just like didn't pay attention to it. But as I left that group and I started doing like stuff on my own and started talking to more and more people, I got more and more stories that I just couldn't put my finger on, and I was kind of almost like I'm kind of like mirroring the same kind of path that you've gone a little bit. And I've talked to more people, and I'm always willing to talk to anybody about Bigfoot, about their experiences, because I always consider myself like a conduit, or at least like a avenue for somebody. Because like for every person that I've talked to, like maybe 5 people, there's probably like 20 more people that I didn't get a chance to talk to, anything like that. But so I think it's very refreshing to hear your story and your books. I haven't had an opportunity to buy your books yet, but I will, and I will read these because it's almost like the same kind of avenue that I kind of subscribe to and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, no, it's very intriguing, and Ron Moorhead had done commentary on my first book.
Wow.
So I had Ron, chime in on several of the chapters and some of his opinions on some of my reports.
That is awesome.
Wow.
And actually I interviewed Ron on another short-lived, I was on another podcast, and I was actually a co-host, but I left that after, due to, we'll just call it creative differences. But right. We did an entire 2-hour interview with Ron one night, and he's the man. If you want to get into the quantum aspects, I understand it to a degree. I can explain it to a degree, but at some point, I'm just a dirty old hippie, former musician, now a Sasquatch researcher, and so I get it, but sometimes it's hard to explain. But when you read that, it explains so much about what you have going on, where you may not be able to actually explain it, but it explains better than the flesh and blood route as to what's going on. People, when I was doing the BFRO thing, people would, call me, or I'd call them. I get the report. What you do is you look up the report, you assign a report to you, and you call them and talk to them and interview them, and then you add to their report and get all the data and facts, and then you type it up and send it in. Well, many times after I interviewed them, they would say, "Well, now I want to tell you something you're not going to believe." this is after I've already interviewed him, so I'm saying, okay, so you just told me you saw a Sasquatch, a creature that does not exist, and you're going to tell me something that I won't believe? Bring it. Let's hear it. And that's where the quantum bizarre stuff came in, you know, where they were hearing a voice in their head. Don't come near me. Don't come any closer. Leave us alone. Or they would see them walk across the road, walk into a tree, and disappear. That kind of thing, you know. And that happened more and more and more. And as the word got out that, you know, I was the guy you could talk to, and I'm not going to laugh at you because I believe you, and I believe these things happen to you. Now, I will say there are people that try to yank your chain, and I'm pretty good at weeding those people out, knock on wood. But I can, you know, you can interview people 4 or 5 different ways. You can ask them the same question 4 or 5 different ways, and they never know it. And, you know, then you can glean from those responses if they're yanking your chain or not, you know. Because hoaxers will just say yes to pretty much anything once they got you hooked. You know, but somebody who's going through these things religiously and truthfully, like my guy in Canada, he would correct me on just minutia, as a lot of people do. No, you got that wrong. It was 4 inches. It wasn't 12 inches. It was 4 inches. Or little things. They would correct you on just little things. Some things I got wrong, and some things I got wrong on purpose, just to see how they're going to answer specific questions. Well, you told me this. I'll ask that same question, and they'll answer it a little differently. So, and human nature being what it is, of course, you know, you may forget something and make a mistake here and there. But as a rule, you know, hoaxers will just pretty much say yes to anything because once they got you, you know, they think they can just string you along. So, but that's how I ended up with all of these people, all these reports. Bless their hearts. I mean, some of them were just devastated, you know, and it shook them to their core. You know, if you're like a deeply religious person and you believe a certain way and, you know, in a certain, you know, path that, you know, God laid out for humanity, and all of a sudden these other things are popping in, it screws up your whole view of life. I mean, because you're devout and you live your life a certain way, and all of a sudden these things that you may have deemed as evil or just not right are suddenly happening to you and everybody else around you, and you can't explain it, you know, from a moral or philosophical point of view. And so you try to come to terms with some of this stuff. And I'm talking, you know, just bizarre stuff. You can probably just make something up, and I probably got a report that kind of goes along with it, you know. So
I did a Bigfoot report with somebody in Tennessee, and she was telling me, and I've said this on my own podcast before. She was telling me that this Bigfoot was coming down she was coming down the mountain to have sex with her, and I said, "How did you know it wanted to have sex with you?" And she said his penis was glowing whenever he came down the mountain, and she told me that, and I was like. And I asked Luke Gross, which is my mentor, I asked him, is that possible? And he says, well, you know, there's some phosphorescent mushrooms, and, you know, a Bigfoot could get his hands on it and then, you know, touch himself, and, yeah, it could happen. And so I've had stuff like that. And I've had, like, another sighting report in Conroe, Texas, of a Bigfoot crossing the freeway with a trench coat on. And I go, are you sure? And they go, yeah. So I've had some stuff like that. So I've had some pretty strange ones, like you know, myself, and it's just some stuff that I just had to, okay, let me just circle around again and just ask like the same questions, you know, see if they come out with the same answers. And yeah, they sure did. But yeah, some strange stuff I've had. So
yeah, no, I did a paranormal conference last year, and I'm doing it again this year. And a lady came up to me and was telling me that she saw one here in Kansas City, Kansas. Long story short, it was wearing a suit and a white shirt and a tie. And she pulled up to an intersection. I know exactly where this is. It's not that far from me. And as she was pulling up to the intersection, there was a 4 lanes, so 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other way, and there was a guy stopped on the left of her, and she was pulling up. She could see this guy freaking out in his car. It looked like he was swatting flies. He was screaming, yelling. She couldn't hear him, but she could see all this. And as she got up close to him, and pulled up almost to where the light was, she could see he was just, his eyes were bulging out. He was crying, sobbing, and he was like trying to get out of his car, and he couldn't because I think he was freaking out so bad. And then as she looked in front of the car, because he kept looking at the front, she saw a Sasquatch walking on all 4s. That's on her hands and feet. They walk on their hands and feet, not hands and knees, but hands and feet, walking across the intersection. She saw it, and she had no belief system and very little knowledge of Sasquatch. And she saw this, and when it passed her car, it stood up and walked off into the woods. And she described it as a Sasquatch, a gorilla. And so what do you do with that? Is she jacking with me? But she described this guy, and then when the light turned, she left, and he was still sitting there, and the car was rocking back and forth. That's how bad he was freaking out and shaking the car inside, and he could not get out of the car, or maybe he was trying to and didn't want to. It was just a bizarre, I've had reports of him wearing clown outfits on a Native American reservation in Oklahoma. What do you are people thinking you're that gullible, or are they really seeing that?
Right.
Some of you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, which these I do. But the woman came up to me at this conference and was just sincere and she said, "Please hear me out. I want to tell you this." And she was just like anybody you'd run into on the street. She just looked like and talked like anybody else. So what do you do with all that? It's really hard to discount it, because if you just talk to a couple other, 2 or 3 other people with some similar stuff, they're all a little bit different, but they're all kind of the same report. They're seeing something. You can tell they're embarrassed to be telling you this, but they're telling it to you anyway because they need a voice. They need someone to listen, and will hear them out. It's crazy.
Do you ever get any of these people who've given you these sighting reports continue to talk to them or reach out to them, say, "Hey, how's it going? Just want to check on you." Do you still do that? Okay.
Oh yeah. No, I've got 3 habituation witnesses that I monitor regularly. In other words, they've got these, the Sasquatch living on their property, and they interact with them on a, I'll say weekly or monthly basis. And I get updates and reports. I got some killer photos. If you haven't got those books, I guarantee you one of them's got the best photo of a hand you've ever seen. To this day, probably you have not seen a better handprint. It's a hand on a trail cam. It walked right in front of the trail cam and got a awesome photo of the hand. Just can't beat it. And this is on their property, And I've got other folks that I get handprints. I get mystery creatures. I got I talked to probably about, I'd say, a dozen people I have that I speak with on a regular basis. I mean, 2 to 5 to 6 to 10 times a year, because they have stuff going on all the time. They have habituation, right. So they're interacting with them, and it happens so often with some of these people, they even forget. Hey, did I tell you that Ronnie saw a Sasquatch yesterday when he was walking the dog? No, you forgot to tell me. Well, yeah, we went to Walmart. We went to Super Clips and got a haircut, and went and got some Mexican food. And oh yeah, he saw a Sasquatch this morning when he was walking the dog on the way to as we were leaving. I mean, they forget. It's such a regular occurrence. I would kill for that.
Yeah.
Because we're all wanting, investigators, researchers. We want these interactions. And we have to go out and look for them. These people live on property with them, and they've lived there for generations. And we see them all the time. They almost think nothing of it.
Yeah, but I was going to lead to my next question was, have you ever seen one?
Yeah, I've seen several. No daylight sightings. I've seen 3 at night through my thermal camera, and the one that took me from. I always had an open mind, but the one that took me from. I'll say an ape, a physical being, was I was leading an expedition for BFRO 2013, Missouri, and I was watching it through my thermal camera. It walked around a bend. I saw we were missing some people. They got lost, and so it was about 11:30 at night, and I had been scanning with my thermal, and we were having a trouble because we were down in a holler, and their radios weren't working, and they were lost, and we're trying to talk them back in. So I was scanning, and I quit recording because I was running my batteries low. So I was just going to be scanning the property now with my camera on to see if I can see them. Well, I saw this glow coming through. I said, okay, thank God they're here. Jesus Christ. And so it walked around a corner. It wasn't them. It was a Sasquatch. And it took one step. It took 2 steps. On the second step, boom, it just disappeared. The heat signature just was a puff of smoke, and it just disappeared. It looked like somebody blew a Sasquatch smoke ring. It was just a thin, looked like cigarette smoke outline of a Sasquatch, and then it just dissipated and was gone.
Wow.
And I'm going, okay, I'm not high, I'm not drunk, I'm not a crazy person. I'm not on meds. My equipment is a FLIR thermal. It's it's in great working order. It was not a malfunction. It just vanished. I don't think it knew we were there, and it came around the corner because we were just staying static and quiet, waiting for the people that were lost to show up so we could continue. And I said, okay, I'm done. I am on the paranormal side now because that crap just doesn't happen. So, and I told a couple of the guys there, I was with a lot of very ultra conservative, very straight, there's no such thing as paranormal. They didn't believe that it's anything but a dumb ape in the woods. A lot of my, the fellow investigators I was with. It was a BFRO expedition. And I said something later, but not that night because I didn't want to go through because I had a bunch of people I was responsible for. I had about 20 people that were in this group, so I wasn't going to get into that whole conversation. I wanted to keep everybody safe and quiet, and calm. So, but when that happened, that was it for me. I mean, I went, okay, I'm in a whole other ball game here, and so if you guys aren't with me, I'll see you later, And so that changes everything for you. Whenever you see something like that, or whatever you see, if it's a ghost, if it's a murder, whatever you see, that's your reality. Nobody can talk you out of it. You saw something. You know what you saw. You're not a crazy person. You're not, inebriated or on drugs. That's your reality, and it'll be there forever. If it only happens once in your life, so be it. But you saw it, you happened to see it, and you'll never forget it. So, and once that happens, you're on your way. You're down the rabbit hole, as I say.
Right.
You're down the rabbit hole. It's all over.
Carter, have you done any paranormal investigations at all, or anything?
No, I stick to Sasquatch. Now, I've had paranormal things happen during Sasquatch investigations. I have a property I monitor here in Missouri, and I had several trail cams there, and they had trail cams out also. And one of the photos we got back was a ghost.
Like
it was on a trail cam.
Like
it was a ghost.
Like an apparition, like a full body apparition? Or?
Yeah, full body. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a woman wearing a nightgown and then some kind of coat over it. And because you could see where the nightgown or whatever she was wearing stopped about her knees, and then this, I would say a robe that she was wearing went down to about her mid-calf. Mm-hmm. But you could see right through her. Now the two photos after that are of her husband out there with a gun looking for whatever, because they heard something, and they've had a lot of Sasquatch activity. So they typically they grab their guns and they go running out there, and it was him. She was in the house. She was freaked out. Mm-hmm. So it was him and this apparition. It's clear as a bell. Wow. It's unmistakable. It's awesome. It's on a trail cam.
I know. We talked off show like a couple of weeks ago. We talked about because I've always been interested in this, and like I was telling you that because I do paranormal stuff. I'm a part of Pentex Paranormal Investigations of North Texas, and I was a TBRC member for a long time, and I did both for a little bit, and we were talking about infrasound and EMF. And I wanted your take on that because Bigfoots are considered. I don't know why I yelled on that one. Bigfoots are considered like they give off infrasound. And I was talking to another person on another podcast, and I was explaining EMF to them, because people react differently to EMF. People they either get a headache, or they get nauseated, or they get they hallucinate. Just stuff like that. So I was explaining that to her, and she goes, "That sounds like infrasound." And so if a Bigfoot's in the area, or a heavily Bigfoot area, and they're doing infrasound, would that make sense to give ghosts or just spirits or entities enough energy to manifest, like you were talking about this one incident with the lady in the nightgown?
Yeah, it could be, because they've had several paranormal things happen on their property, along with a lot of Sasquatch activity, including chattering, scaring the dogs, chasing the dogs, slapping the house, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm not so sure that they can't just manifest that themselves, because I've been affected with infrasound once. It was hilarious. Not at the exact moment it was happening, because I had my wife with me at the time, mm-hmm. but we were both affected by what I am quite certain was infrasound, or some type of something to make me hallucinate. And my wife, she's been watching me do this for a lot of years, and she sees evidence and photos and reports, and she's going, "Oh, that's interesting, that's cool. Well, I'm glad you believe, honey. That's good." It's kind of patronizing, but kind of not. She believed that I believe, but she and she is a sensitive, by the way, mm-hmm. and so she's sensitive to these kind of things, but she was just kind of patronizing me a little bit, and so I said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you come camping with me to one of my research areas?" And what happens when you tell somebody, "I'll show you something."
Right.
Well, it never happens,
Yes, that's always the case.
Well, it did happen. And so where I took her, this is what's ironic and I won't say coincidental, because I don't believe in coincidental activity at all in this field. There aren't any coincidences. But the area where I saw that Sasquatch disappear on the thermal, I was leading the expedition, mm-hmm. that became one of my research areas. I go there routinely with me and my partner, and I say we have something happen about 90% of the time. There's almost always something going on there. So I took her, and we camped, and where I saw this creature come walking around the bend, I had investigated the area. I ended up going to the top of this hill, and that's where the group that I thought was coming to us was walking down. It turned out to be the Sasquatch. So I researched that area, and this became one of my areas. So she and I parked my car, SUV, at this gate. It's a big, huge metal gate, one of those you can't move or open because it's padlocked by the conservation department. And it goes down about 100 yards down this ravine that's very rocky and gnarly. You just can't drive down there. In fact, they blocked it off because too many people were getting trapped down there on their four-wheelers. So they just put a thing where you can't go there. So I parked at this gate. We walked down immediately. As soon as we got out of the car, she was freaking out. She had the heebie-jeebies. The hair on the back of her neck was standing. And I was getting the same feeling, but I'm used to it because I know this is one of their areas. It's like their living room. These beings live, and this is one of their areas where they congregate and they live. This is their home. And so we're walking down this ravine. She's freaking. We're gonna go. I believe you. Let's go back. I'm going back to the car. I said, no, you're not. Let's go down here to the bottom of the hill. I'll show you what I'm getting at. You're really gonna see something or really feel something. And she was totally freaking out. And I said, look, we don't have that far to go. I shine my light. The car is right up here, and I shine my light. The car was not there. I went, where's the car? She goes, it's right there. And I shine the light back. No, it's not there. We just parked by the gate. Where'd it go? And I just instinctively turned around and shined my light down at the bottom of the hill where we were heading. And there was my car at the bottom of this hill in this ravine that's just totally impenetrable. My car wouldn't even fit down there. It wouldn't even fit to go down that ravine. It was just wide enough to walk. And so I shined my light back up and back, up and back. My car is gone. I'm going, how the hell did our car get there? How did I get turned around? And suddenly it dawned on me, you guys are jacking with me. The Sasquatch are jacking with me. I knew what was going on. I knew then what they were doing, but I had no control over it.
Right.
And she was just totally losing it because every time I'd shine my light up to where the car was, it was there as far as she was concerned, but I was looking there and it was gone. I turned and shined my light down at the bottom of the hill where the car could not possibly be, and there it was. And I would shine my light down there, and she's going, you are out of your mind. The car is not there. It's up there. So after about 2 or 3 times, I shined the light back, and my car was back where it was. And we did go ahead and leave.
Wow.
But I was looking at my vehicle, and it was the taillights. I backed in, so I was looking at the taillights both times, and they were reflecting bright. So I clearly saw them at the bottom of the hill. You know, as I stand here, it was there, and I was trying to figure out how the hell did I get turned around? How did I park my car there when you can't even get there?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but and so we left. But I mean, to me, that was just rock solid, clear as a bell. You are messing with me, and you got me, you know. But it was clear and convincing to me that right there, they were making me see something that could not be,
right,
and was not, because where I was seeing my car, my wife said, no, it's not down there. It's up there. I would shine my light back up there. No, it's not up there. It's down here. And what else was it? And I've had other instances where I've been paralyzed in my sleeping bag. I couldn't get up, and I had to get up and take a leak, and I just couldn't. And I heard a Sasquatch walking by my tent, and it was about 5:30 in the morning. This was another place entirely up in Iowa, and I couldn't move. And I wanted to get out. I had to take a leak. And I thought it was, at first when I heard this footsteps, I thought it was my partner who was camped about 25 yards away from me in this big open field. We just decided to camp out in the open. So I thought, well, he got up and was walking around, and he went to take a leak, and I thought I'd get up. Well, it's a good idea. I got to get up. It was cold. It was October. But I said, I want to get up and go take a leak. And I heard this boom, boom, and as it got closer, it was just thunderous. It was shaking the ground. It was a Sasquatch walking by my tent, kind of in a semi-hurry. And but I said, I gotta get up. I want to get up. And I couldn't move. I couldn't move my arms. It was crazy, you know. And then when it got away, when the footsteps disappeared into the the background, and I couldn't hear him or feel him anymore, then I could get up and get out and took a leak. And then I saw my partner 25 yards away. He was standing up. He just waved at me like, "Hey, what's going on? Did you just come walking by my tent?" I said, "No." "Did you walk by my tent?" "No." "Okay." So, I mean, and I've been around people that have been paralyzed, knocked to their knees,
right.
By debilitating something, and if you know how infrasound works,
right.
It works a lot of different ways.
I was just going to ask you, do you think that incident with the car where it was, misplaced in your memory or something like that, do you think there was several Bigfoots shooting infrasound at you?
I don't know if it was several or just one. I don't know if it takes more than one to disable us puny little humans.
Right.
But I was the only one seeing what wasn't there. My wife was seeing the car exactly where it was when we left it. I was seeing it at the destination, which is where I wanted to take her, which is just before the curve where I saw that one disappear.
Right. So everybody reacts differently to infrasound or EMF. That's
yeah. And she's a sensitive. She's got an EMF detector, and she does some ghost hunts and stuff like that. More as a hobby. She's not like devout about it, but
right.
She's done a couple of investigations with Chip Coffee. He comes here to Missouri to the winery here, and so she's gone to a couple things with what's her name, Amy Benai, Renai, whatever, and Chip Coffee. She's done a couple of investigations with
Amy Bruni, I think is her name.
Amy Bernie, I think she says it Bernai, but yeah, that's her. Yeah, so she's been to a couple of those, you know, and so and she's a sensitive. She's sensitive to ghosts and spirits especially, and so and we've got so much weird stuff going on around our house ever since about 2 years ago when I had an aha moment in Illinois. I've been gifted some rocks. It's if you read the second book, the cover on the book is a tree trunk that's got 5 rocks on one end and 1 rock on the other. Yeah, there's a really long story. I don't know how much time we got here, but it's a really long story. It's somewhat involved, but it blows you away. And every time I tell that story, I get chills because it's one of those definitive moments where you're in the presence of something and they are communicating with you intentionally and in an intelligent way. It's not like they're banging rocks together or hitting a tree. They're communicating by gifting and signifying that they can count and they are aware of the people in your party, and there's an awareness, a sentient, sapient awareness about them that you can't dispute.
Well, Carter, we're gonna have to have you back on for a little bit more. So
for sure.
Well, I'll come back.
But what I kind of wanted to do, and like we always do this with Bigfoot Club, we always talk about Bigfoot, we always talk about paranormal, we talk about other stuff. But what I wanted to talk about also as well was because you're originally from Dallas, right?
Yep.
And you're also a musician.
I was a professional drummer for about 20 years. I played in the late 60s to the mid 80s. And I started younger than that. I'm talking if I go back to when I was like 14 or so. I played drums for a living for close to 20 years.
Because your brother-in-law told me that you knew or opened for Stevie Ray Vaughan.
I knew Stevie and I knew Jimmy, and like I say, we grew up in. I'm from Dallas, and they lived in Oak Cliff, which is South Oak Cliff, which is kind of the goober, lesser respected area of Dallas. They live in Oak Cliff, so they're hicks, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But not really. But that's just you're in Dallas. You're in Dallas, but if you're in Oak Cliff, you're in Oak Cliff.
That's actually where I grew up, Oak Cliff.
Oh, really? Yeah, they were in South Oak Cliff, and so when I finally I moved down to Austin because that's kind of where everything was happening, Dallas and Austin, and so when we got down to Austin, Stevie was starving to death. He was trying to hook up with a band to get something going. He just couldn't do it. His big brother was in the Thunderbirds. And so he would come sit in with us. He slept in a couple of bars. He slept on pool tables because he had nowhere to go at night. A couple of times he had to sleep on pool tables in bars after they closed the bars.
Wow.
He came a long way after that, But one of my bands was Thunderbird. And we used that name because it was the name of a hotel, or really a motel, that we stayed in Waco when we played at the Club Abraxas, and it was run by the Mexican mob, and you pull into town, they give you a paper sack full of drugs, here's your hotel, don't worry about it, it's paid for, we'll see you tonight. And so, but we changed our name, and the Thunderbirds took our name and called themselves the Fabulous Thunderbirds.
Wow.
So it's just a weirdness, and we thought nothing of it, it was just like, and I was in a band called Roscoe, which was originally Crackerjack. Crackerjack was a really hugely successful band, and they should have made it and didn't. And a couple of the members ended up in our band, me and my guitar player's band, and so we called it Crackerjack, and then we changed the name to Roscoe because a couple of the former members of Crackerjack wanted to use that name over, and they had first dibs, so we changed our name to Roscoe. But we were in the group of bands that were supposed to kind of make it, so to speak. Before I moved to Austin, I was in a band. We opened for The Who. And when I was with Crackerjack and Roscoe, we opened for the Cars, Journey. And Journey was like nobody at the time. They just released their album, the first one with Wheel in the Sky and all that. And and we opened for Taj Mahal, and that was in Roscoe, Crackerjack. So I've been around the block a little bit,
Sounds like it.
We were playing at a club in Dallas, and the club owner came and said, "Hey, would you mind letting another band? They're in from out of town. They just got a record deal. They're trying to get some exposure. Could you let them do a set?" I said, "Oh, sure, whatever." It was Bruce Springsteen and the East Street Band. They came to Gertie's nightclub in Dallas, Texas. This would have been in the early 70s, and they did a set. First time I'd ever seen in one of my bands, Thunderbird, we had a black lead singer, and you didn't see that many mixed bands. And there was Clarence Clemens, the sax player, and he just blew us away. I mean, the whole band was just like, holy crap, we felt like inadequate. We were trying to find a way to go out the back door so no one would see us, because these guys were just scorching hot, It was crazy. So you just see a lot of stuff like that, Dallas was like the place to be. It was hot, or hotter than the East or West Coast as far as the music coming out of Dallas and Austin at that time. It was the hottest place to be. I would compare, I'll put it on the same level as New York or LA. It was that much stuff going on in Dallas and Austin at that time. ZZ Top, was down there, and Point Blank, and they were all good buddies. We all hung out together. They all got big record deals, and we didn't. We were just always the ugly stepchild, always the second place, And I released a couple of 45s, but I'm still working for a living, so That tells you how the gods weren't looking at us, or they looked the other way.
Carter, you should do it like another book, but not about Sasquatch. You should do about music. So.
I've got some tales, but it would only mean something to people that were really from Dallas or from Texas at the time. It's one of those you had to be there kind of deals.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot more. It's a lot cooler when I'm telling it to somebody that wasn't there. They go, "God, that was awesome," but 20 or 30,000 people live those lives, and so they're familiar. But other than that, the rest of the country, Mother Blues, Gertie's, what is that? What is that? Is it a restaurant? No, it's a rock bar. Every group, every concert that came to town, Led Zeppelin, Thin Lizzy, you name it, they came and sat in at one of the two clubs that we were always playing in. And we were, and so you always saw these guys. They'd come in and say, "Hey, can we sit in?" So, the guitar player for Thin Lizzy, he died. What's his name? I can't remember. Phil Lynott. He died a long time ago. But he came and said, "I've got a picture of me playing cowbell with Thin Lizzy while they were sitting in with a band." I mean, it's just some, just weird random stuff. I'm sitting there, more cowbell. I'll show you. Here's some cowbell. So I was playing cowbell. Yeah, so it was just a weird time. It's what I truly, you had to be there because you're from Texas, you're in Texas, so you can relate to it. But people that weren't or aren't will go, "Well, it must have been pretty cool." But it doesn't set with you like it would if you were there back during those times. But I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I've done some weird stuff. I'm very lucky. I've had 2 or 3 lifetimes, and then in between my bands, a band would break up. I was in between bands. I worked for Showco Lighting, so I was a lighting tech. So like I said, I went out on the road with Grand Funk Railroad, James Taylor, Shaka Khan, 3 Dog Night, Bad Company for about 2 months. And that was about it, because I was playing when I didn't have a band, we broke up for whatever reason. I'd go out on the road for 6 months, make money, and so, and I had a real good friend who's still with me, and he's on the road with the Stones. He's their tour manager right now.
Wow.
So it's a crazy life. Most people don't believe it or can't grasp it, but you had to be there.
It's funny how you mentioned the cowbell. Like I'm assuming, was it Nazareth that did? They were like the first band to do not introduced, but like use the cowbell in a rock song. I could be wrong.
I don't know if it was Nazareth or it was Blue Oyster Cult. Feel the Reaper. They were one of the first ones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. I knew it was one.
More cowbell.
Yeah, more cowbell.
Yeah, more cowbell. Yeah. Now, Vanilla Fudge had done it. Blue Chair had done it a while back. But Vanilla Fudge, Blue Chair or Vanilla Fudge was the 3-piece, so he really had trouble doing a cowbell with the 3-piece. But I think it was on a couple of album cuts. But it was. I've been blessed. I've had a crazy, then I got into Sasquatch and, the paranormal, UFO, MUFON, and I've been tapped on the shoulder many times for many different reasons. It's just bizarre. I quit questioning it a long time ago because there's something going on, and I'm supposed to be a part of it, I guess,
Carter, that's very outstanding. I mean, very rarely do we ever talk to like somebody from the BFRO and somebody that knew Steve Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, exactly. and
oh yeah. I mean,
it's local. Like you're local, and you still. You talk about it like it was like it's still your home. And I also got to ask before I forget. Do you still own a drum set, and do you still play?
I still have a drum set. I play for therapy more because I had some pretty good success, and we were just inches away from a couple of record deals a couple of times. It just didn't happen. There was a lot of good talent out there. Just because you didn't get a record deal doesn't mean you're not any good. It just means there's somebody that struck a chord better than you did. It's just the way it is. So, but I don't want to go back and try to recreate what they call, like Springsteen says, your glory days. I don't want to be the old fart sitting in a garage. Let's try that one more time there for I go change my diapers and then go back to the nursing home. I don't want to go back, because you can't go back. And at my age and stage of my life, I don't want to go on the road and do that again. And I probably could. I've been there and done it. I was a comic for 5 years. I did improv and sketch comedy. We were supposed to audition for Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh my God!
And one of my partners died. He had a brain tumor and he died.
Oh, sorry.
We were one of the few improv groups. It was me and two other guys out on a limb, and it was not named after the Shirley MacLaine book. It was just that we just picked that name because it's improv. You're going out on a limb and doing. You have no material. You just You've seen Whose Line?
Yes.
Who am I? What am I doing? What's my name? Thanks. Here I go. And that's your sketch. And you wing it. So I did that for a good number of years. And I finally said, well, when he passed away, we couldn't. Me and my remaining partner could not agree. I wanted to get a woman in the group, because one of us was always playing a woman and grabbing a wig out of a prop box. Well, I want to get a real woman in there, so we didn't have to do that. And he just disagreed. So we split up, and we did a few gigs after. Anyway,
Carter, wow, that's super amazing. We're right at an hour, so
okay.
I wanted to ask you if you wanted to take this opportunity to plug whatever, like social media, your books. How does someone find you or reach out to you or find your books?
My books. Now, my book just came out on Beyond the Fray Publishing, so you can get, and that's a black and white book. You can get that at Amazon, Kindle, or a regular black and white book, just regular, but my book, it's the same book, but it's all color. It's all color inside. The photos are color. They're a nice, shiny, glossy page. I autograph all the books when I send them out. You can go to my website, which is www.relichominid.com. And the books are $22 each, plus a little shipping. I autograph them, and I'll personalize them however you want, if you want to do that. But my deal with Beyond the Fray is they sell the black and white versions because they're cheaper. They're $15, $14.99 if you want to save money, which I totally understand. But I'm a purist, and I really like the color when you're showing forests and vibrant things. I think it should be in color, not black and white. But I realize there's two price points. So, but www.relichominid.com, and or you can get the new book. It just came out 3 days ago, actually, this week. At Amazon.com. They got the Kindle version, books on tape, and black and white paperbacks, both books. So you can get them there. So
whenever we post this podcast, I'm going to put all your links on it so everybody can get to it and reach you. And man, thank you for being on. I really, really enjoyed this. This is like one of probably the most fun and I've actually had on a podcast interviewing somebody. And I hate to say
I appreciate that. Yeah, no. Well, I tell you, we can get into some specific stories next time.
Okay.
Some of these specific chapters that are really just mind-boggling. And I could just tell you one, and we'd spend the whole night on it because they're that incredible. So it's up to you guys.
I'd love to have you back on. I'd love to have you back on.
Yes.
We really enjoyed it. Thank you for being on. And Steven, you got anything closing?
Whenever we do buy the books, I kind of want to get like a personal photograph of you playing drums to come with the book.
Okay. No, I do. Well, my granddaughter, she is autistic, and she's 5, but she loves the drums, and so every time she comes over to the house, I have to take her down. She says basement. She knows, and she heads straight for the basement because she wants to go down there and she plays the drums along with me.
That's awesome.
She just loves it. So, that brings so much joy to me right there. It's just so cool. But, because the vibrations move her, because there's sensory things that aren't working for her, but the vibration of the music just tears her up. She loves it. So
that's awesome.
It's great, a lot of fun for me. But I'd love to come back anytime, guys. Just let me know. We can talk about a lot of Sasquatch stuff. I got a few UFO things here and there, but
okay.
The Sasquatch is my bread and butter, and that's probably more interesting than everything else.
Well, thank you for being on. We really enjoyed it, and we're going to say goodnight here.
All right, guys, we'll chat.
All righty, thank you.
You bet, guys. See you.